excited.
I was gonna say, how does
Slipping
photography?
down.
Ready to roll.
7 o'clock. Open the meeting with a prayer. O God, guard our homes, churches, and schools, and all therein from harm and destruction. Preserve the integrity of this nation, founded on religious principles, by protecting it from all enemies within and without. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Patrick Hackett.
Here.
Chad Longbons.
Here.
Carter Dickerson.
Here.
Christy Arlinghouse.
Here.
Vince Albanese.
Here.
Bob Mueller.
Here.
Okay, next item is approval of minutes, February 11th, 2019 council meeting.
Got a question on the first page where you got February 4th was a regular meeting. Was that not a special meeting?
February 4th was a special meeting.
Okay.
Make a motion that we approve as amended.
I second.
Chad Longbons.
Yes.
Carter Dickerson.
Yes.
Christy Arlinghouse.
Yes.
Vince Albanese.
Yes.
Bob Mueller.
Yes.
Patrick Hackett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Next item is fire authority report. Jeff?
Good evening. April set out your run numbers in the packets, I hope. And so I'll go over the numbers real quickly. 74 squad runs for January, 81 for February, 155 year-to-date, that's up 16 from last year. 50 fire runs, 112 year-to-date, that is up 16 also from last year. I did send out a copy of the budget that the fire authority approved for your approval. Crescent Springs increase, and the majority of the increase is the paramedic that we had talked about. The majority, the number for Crescent Springs, $38,257. Villa Hills portion is $57,386. Bromley's increase is $3,700. And I will be meeting with Kent County to increase the rates on the unincorporated county. They will go from 61 cents to 75 cents per thousand. If there's any questions on the, we did have 2 structure fires in February. I think I talked about that last month, one on Enid. We did help our neighbors with several fires, Erlanger and Edgewood in the same night. If there's any questions on the budget I can answer?
For the extra calls, is that due to anything in particular that you can tell?
No. We've ranged from a marina floating away on the river to serious accidents on the interstate. It's been one of those months.
How does the level of OD compare to
It's staying pretty much level right now.
level?
Like I talked about a couple months ago, the difference is we're treating on scene. A lot of times they refuse. The only other thing I had to talk about was where we stand with the new firehouse. Assistant Chief Foltz and I plan on attending a conference in Chicago on station design. We have visited 3 firehouses in Cincinnati, 2 in Deerfield Township, and we plan on visiting a couple other firehouses just to get some ideas on what we're looking for. But what this conference is intended to do is give us a way to start and how we go about designing a new firehouse. What I've asked the 2 mayors to do is create a committee we've got lots of local talent in the construction business, the Dreeses, the Wessels, Tobins, so maybe get some of them on the committee and help us along with the build process. So nothing urgent, but we're going to start ramping things up in May when we go to this conference, and we'll bring stuff back to you guys.
Okay. I've already appointed a council committee. So.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, yeah.
Thank you.
Who's on that council committee?
Pat, Chad, Vince is already on the fire authority. I think it's Carter.
That's news to me, but I'd be happy to.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to appoint Carter, if you already have 3 on this committee.
Okay. You already have 3?
Vince, Chad.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Bob. It was Bob. I'm sorry.
Firehouse committee.
I think you'd want to keep a maximum of 3 on any one
Okay.
committee.
Okay. You got that? Okay. Next item is Matt, Finance.
For my Finance Committee report, you should each have, I just passed out kind of a draft version of the 8 months ending 2/28. This is a draft. We're still waiting on some additional information to come in, so I will update this when we have the final numbers for February. So you will note there is nothing in the fund balance part at the top of it, so we will fill that in. From a revenue standpoint, you can see year to date we're about 1.9 million versus the prior year, which is just a little over 2 million. The biggest items are the two in the upper right-hand column, where I have my comments that IPT, our insurance premium tax, is down about $157,000. Again, prior year was a very strong year, so I was not expecting that we would match that again. And then right below that, the payroll gross receipts is down about $50,000, or off about 10%. The one bright spot is our utilities franchise fees, up about 8.6, roughly 10%. And then as you fall down to the expenses, you'll see the different categories: administration, public works, and safety. I have highlighted in kind of a red shading that health, life, and dental insurance. We actually will be adjusting that. We have 2 months of payments in there when there should be only 1 month. So we have both the month of February and the month of March in there, so we'll be backing out the month of March and pushing it to the March financial statements. But for the sake of integrity of the numbers I was using, I left it in here, so we'll do an adjustment there. But you can kind of see that the biggest line item increases there are denoted. And then public works, you kind of have those categories, and they're the largest ones. You can see definitely an uptick year over year of 545 versus 370. That's really driven by 2 of the projects, so equipment purchases, the Bobcat, the lawnmower, and the radar units, as well as the expenses for the grant, which is the restroom in the park. Those 2 alone are about $120,000 in total. And then at the bottom, you see the safety services, which again is a savings to the city. The police and obviously the police contract is experiencing a savings now that we've gone to the Villa Hills Police Department, and the dispatch actually moved off of our expense statement onto the residents as they get it through their county taxes, so the county assessment. So it's really the shift, savings to us, not as so much to the taxpayer. At the bottom, you kind of see the total difference. So year to date, last year we were about 203. This year we're at 274. So we're up a little bit higher. I would say the biggest increases, again, we talked about the payroll overall. If you both include administration and public works, payroll is up about $44,000, up about 12% year over year. And then those 2 projects are about $120,000. That's a big difference.
As far as the admin office payroll, with Rip not being on retired, I would have expected that number to go
He hasn't
down.
really been off that long for it to make that big of an impact, is really what it comes down to.
And then,
Because he's still getting like vacation
Yeah, I don't know
pay and
officially
stuff
when
like
his last
that.
payment was,
He's already-
but you're right, he
You
had
don't get it
approved
like
and
in a
he's
lump
still.
sum, you get it over a period of time, or?
It was probably January.
Right, so in theory, this is
Yeah,
February
it's
financial, so it was
January.
only 1 month.
Yeah.
we've also lost some employees in the public
Public
works
works.
too.
Yeah, timing as well.
Just about a month ago.
Yeah, it was about a month as well, so,
So that's gonna go down.
exactly. In theory, it should.
We lost 1 person, right?
Right.
1, correct. And then the back page, again, is just a graphic representation of that same data, so you can see that. From a time perspective, we will start to work on budgets for the next fiscal year, 2019/2020. Again, I think the thing to keep in mind, obviously, are those payroll expenses. We just heard from the fire authority, that's going up another $38,000. We don't necessarily have adjustments to increase revenue, So it's something we'll definitely have to consider as we go through the budget process to make sure that we're keeping expenses in line with lack of revenue growth.
One of the comments that came back from the resident survey was, and I don't even know how to word it, it was more like a lot of the contractors are not paying their payroll or their payroll tax, or there was some,
It's a comment
Oh,
about
they
it,
do
yeah.
additional tax.
does that sound right? How do we-
Ensure that contractors are paying the payroll tax.
Payroll
And
tax.
I don't
You-
know
you-
how the person
Was that Tom
assuming-
Bernini's card?
No.
Could be.
Might have
I
been.
mean,
That was certainly something he was really big on.
I don't know if that was
Right.
just somebody assuming that that's
Don't
not
know, but-
happening,
No,
or,
Do we feel good about that?
I think it's happening. The county collects the taxes, but the problem, I think, is that
just not getting it.
the county doesn't come out and check on site, where we've got Kevin, who is code enforcement, and he can check. You have to find out who the contractors are to know whether they're paying the taxes.
So does he go on the job site and find out who
He
like the
will.
subcontractors are? So we feel comfortable that it's being.
Yeah, he's only here one day a week though, but, so
But
you're not gonna
you
catch
didn't have
them
that
all.
much starting.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Okay. Brian, police report.
You all should have a packet, so I'll just kind of touch on everything real quick. We had, 586 calls for service for Crescent Springs for the month, over 1,000 for both cities individually. Total crimes, 15, collisions, 26, 56 citations, 85 courtesy notices. Of the crimes, I'll get to that in a minute, I'm sorry. Majority of them were in Crescent Springs, I will give you that. Our solvability rate right now is hovering at 94% for the year, which is a good rate. Case, offense, crime, code summary. You'll get this page every month now. It's just kind of, it breaks down what we've had for the year total. Just kind of give you a better grasp on what we're seeing out there. Helps you guys out a little bit so you know what's going on. Citation wise, they're kind of all over the place. I will tell you though, we're starting to hit Buttermilk Pike, especially in the school zone area, Western Reserve, and that area right there, especially since it's getting warmer. We're gonna start sighting more cars because people are gonna be out, kids are gonna get hit, so we're gonna start getting into them earlier. Of the collisions, one was an injury collision, one commercial vehicle, 2 were in the parking lots, and 4 were on private property. Buttermilk Pike, 27.5% was by far the top roadway collision. So again, that's why the enforcement's going on. Most of your collisions, we're seeing between the Anderson and the interstate. So it's that corridor right here. They did redesign the traffic lights, so hopefully that helps a little bit. And I'm not sure on when the left turn barrier is going up. I'm not sure when that's happening.
I don't think anybody knows at this point.
Yeah, I don't think, so that may alleviate some of them. I know that intersection is usually the one, that's your main problem, is that intersection right there. I think going around that turn. Just a brief summary on some of these here, of these charges. We had, again, there was 3 in Bill Hills, the rest were Crescent Springs. Crescent Springs had PCS first for arrest, trafficking, marijuana arrest. Theft from an auto is still open, saw 4th. Other PCS all closed and with arrest. We have 2 thefts under 500, 1 under 10,000. They're open also. Court times 12 hours, shift coverage 16 hours of overtime, interviews 3 hours, total of 31 hours total for the month of overtime. And then our training's on the back page for the month. You did have the doctor's office over here. That was a federal investigation. They closed that and made an arrest on the doctor there. Again, that was run completely by the feds. They didn't even get us involved until they needed us to transport. So that was that was their deal, not ours.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
I don't know much about it because they didn't give me much information about it.
The eye
Basically-
doctor? I'm
No,
sorry.
no, not the eye doctor.
Sorry to
the
interrupt.
pain
Wellness
doctor.
clinic?
The
We
pain
never
doctor.
seen about
The
pain
wellness
doctor.
clinic?
But the
I guess
pain-
that's what it is, yeah.
Pain doctor.
That was an investigation. That was an investigation that was going on throughout the tri-state. There was 3 other doctors that were caught up in it. It's basically for prescribing medication that, just prescribing medication that one they weren't supposed to be prescribing. During that time, we had an 80-year-old guy. We had to call squad for him because of Oxycontin or something like that. He OD on Oxycontin in the parking lot, which that's not good, during the federal sting. So,
Goodness.
but they went in and they took care of business. And my understanding is he will no longer be practicing. Is my understanding. But,
That's a Crescent Springs business?
yes, yes it is.
Right behind the bank in that big building.
Oh, yeah.
They busted a big one over off of Thomas More Parkway.
Yes, that was
They
part of it.
opened up the following Monday.
Well, there's another doctor in there with him. Now, it's
Yeah.
not the whole place, it's the doctor.
Okay.
The
Is who they were
parking lot
targeting
was
on.
full and
That's-
ads were
again, that's a-
all over the place.
That's a federal thing,
complaining.
and the feds will let us know what they want us to know.
My
Otherwise,
doctor's
they
office
won't
got
tell us
a
anything.
separate entrance because the druggies were coming in to their office.
Well, they're hitting them all, so I know, but again, it's a federal thing, and unless they tell us, we don't know about it.
You mentioned a previous meeting that you had an apartment, I think, under surveillance for possible drug trafficking.
We have a couple of them looking right now.
Great.
And then when we find, if we make an arrest, and in fact, we just made an arrest out of one last week. Meth, we'll call the owners and we'll tell them you need to clean it up, or we'll go. Usually the owners are very happy to comply, however, this one wasn't so happy about it, so I said, well, next time we'll take the house.
How does the Supreme Court ruling affect you on that? Because I had that something.
Well, as a landlord, if you know about it, and it's a sticky thing. As a landlord, if you're told you have an issue there, and that we're constantly going there, you have to try to alleviate the problem. You can't just like bury it and say, I don't know anything about it. Actually, something that would help us huge, and we use this in another department, basically the landlords have to register with the city, and they have to register that, as a leasing agent, and basically the city can revoke their leasing license. And you'll be amazed how cooperative they are when you get ready. And it's like $1,000 a day. There's $1,000 a day fine for every day you didn't alleviate the problem. And you can like suspend their leasing license. It was amazing how well they worked with us after that. But what we do is the Meadowwood Apartments,
That's what you mentioned.
they're very, Crestwood, they're very good about it. Usually everybody's been very good about it. We tell them they evict them right away, they're gone, get the problem out of the city. This one wanted to argue with me about it, and I was like, it's all on tape, I got it. So we'll see how that goes though.
So you recommend to us that we draft something up as far as the leasing agent?
Yeah, there's other cities that have done it. I mean, if you decide, I mean, that's another tool we can use.
That's a good tool to use.
Basically, and I know Covington had it, I want to say Fort Mitchell, but I might be wrong. There's another couple had it, and it's very,
Well, it's another tool in our arsenal to stop drugs. And
So-
if we've already got one complex that the leasing agent's not being cooperative,
well, I think he was not cooperative, but I think after our conversation, he might become more cooperative. I'm not sure yet.
So,
Okay.
so,
We'll know
what
here
you
shortly.
threatening with?
Nothing. I was my kind, joking.
so just to be clear, we have no leasing license requirements in our city,
No.
but we are probably a little more out of whack than most cities. I mean, we're at least 50% or right at 50% apartments.
Right.
So I mean, given the makeup of our city, it's something we could talk about, but if
It
it's not,
is-
if it's not a
up to
huge
council.
problem,
No, it's up to council. I'd just say that's another tool in your arsenal. We did it in Covington because we weren't getting any cooperation. So they made it like really hard, strict, and said either you evict them or we'll start taking money from you and start canceling your leases.
Now Prospect Point do they have apartments?
Prospect Point does have apartments, yes, ma'am.
Does Villa Hills have the?
No, but we get very little trouble out of
Okay.
Prospect Point.
So
Very
there's
little
no
trouble.
need.
Mostly it's in the
Section 8.
condos, the condo part of it.
Oh,
And those are actually owner.
yeah.
yeah, that's weird. Hmm.
So that's where we get most of our issues out of. Apartments, very little. I should have said that because I just jinxed myself. But no, usually they're very cooperative with us.
Okay.
Like I said, Meadowwood and the rest of them have been very cooperative. Just this one gentleman decided to argue with me about it. And I'm like, well,
You must have been a user.
Well, you never know.
I don't think so, but we'll go with that. So, otherwise, the K-9's on target to be on the street, and I'm saying by the 1st of May. Doing very well. Doing very well. Very
How's the radio system stuff going?
It's going. It's slow, but it's going. They're still building some of the towers, and we're here in September, but they may push it back to December. Basically, they want to make sure it's all working before they can put it out there. So we got this other system that's still working. We'll make sure all the bugs are out of this system. Kind of unlike they did with the CAD. The CAD system was basically, boom, there it is, and there's all these bugs now. Especially with the new one. I think we're beta testing the new one, actually.
Are all the druggies gonna still be able to listen to the new system?
No,
And
new
the
systems,
old
no, new systems high tech. I mean, it's 800 megahertz. It's the Cadillac of the radio system is what I'm told. But there's a lot of there's towers that have to rebuild, some they have to build where they weren't towers. Then they have to test everything with the leads on them. And they gotta make sure everything's working properly before they switch us all over to it. 'Cause once you switch us over, we can't, the other radios are no good, yeah. So, I think they wanna make sure everything's in line. Dan Matthews is the new, coordinator out there, and he's an old fire department guy, so he wants to make sure everything's ready to go before we do anything with it, so. Which is, I think a lot of us are happy with that. I don't want a broken system. We can't hear me if I'm yelling for help or something like that. We will, excuse me, we will test the schools though. One thing we did find out is River Ridge is wrapped for the radio towers. Because the radio tower's right behind it. Well, you walk 100 feet in that building, I can't get out. Even with cell phones. So we have identified River Ridge. I think we're gonna, once we get a system where we can start testing our radios, we're gonna check out.
Over
here.
I was wondering why these took
They'll have to put repeaters close to them or in the building so that we can boost the signal. That is an issue. So we will, and I know Jeff will be checking too for the fire department. They'll have the same issue. R.A. Jones may be another one. I'm not sure yet. I gotta see how that one works out. But other than that, we're doing fine. Doing good. Oh, we're up to full staff for about a month. Then I lose another person. That's all right, I got that in the works. So. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Public Works, Dewey.
I don't have too much. Everything's been running fine. The weather's been cooperating for us. We fixed a small concrete slab up in front of one of the doors of the firehouse because the concrete was broken. It was flipping up underneath of the trucks. So we went up there and took care of that for Jeff, so they wouldn't do any damage to their trucks. And then we're making a list of things, getting ready to start probably over on the park and some street projects when the weather breaks here. That's all I got.
Okay, thanks, Dewey. Next item, Mayor's Report, resident survey feedback. If you have any comments?
It's a wide variety of
Well,
feedback.
I know.
How long's it open? I must have missed that in the minute.
Was there a deadline?
We didn't put a deadline, but,
That's fine.
Still get cards in April?
yeah.
A handful a day.
And you're gonna do a spreadsheet of the issues, consolidate some like,
Yeah, I'll probably,
Similar ones.
if there's, you know, saw a complaint about Brownlee Crescent Springs Road. I'll probably just tally them up and say 5 complaints,
Good.
Brownlee Crescent Springs
Yeah.
Road. There's no reason for everybody to keep sorting through all of it.
Mhm.
So I'll try to consolidate it, but I'll have the number of how many responded that way, if that works.
With the comments?
With the comments.
That was good.
Okay.
I'm surprised at the response. How many have we
Healthy
gotten in?
response. That's great.
Postcards stuck about that high.
The one,
So well
lower my
over.
taxes, improve my services.
Probably.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, last time we did something like that, we got like 3. The number was just
Oh, I was gonna say,
dismal, absolutely dismal. I don't know what the issue was, but it was
Zero to
awful.
last
Years ago.
that one we sent out, there was, what, around 300?
Most likely.
Well, this was years ago.
Oh,
Well, Lou's been calling people, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Do your
can-
civic duty.
Yes.
do we think we might use this information to help set this budget, this year's budget, which will begin, as Matt said, in a couple of weeks? Or are we gonna kind of digest that and help use that info to set next year's budget and priorities?
Well, I think we'd probably have time to add some items in this year's budget, wouldn't
Depending on what it is.
I threw out the
Yeah.
idea of using the spreadsheet and maybe having a strategy session before we start the budget process so that the various departments would know, we could come up with goals for the year, for the fiscal year. Like, I'm just using this as an example, I'm not endorsing it. A dog park, okay? That would be an expenditure of some money, and we'd have to do some legwork to find the ground, you know, the land, whatever, things like that, but
Well,
So-
you know, we got dog fountains up in the park up here now.
No.
Well, or they're coming, I don't know if they're in yet.
I
Are
heard
they,
they
are
were
they in or
coming.
not in?
They're not in, are they?
Not in.
What
Well,
was
that's
that?
great.
Dog
Dog
fountains,
fountains.
where they can, a fountain for the dog.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar. Okay, I just didn't hear you say fountain. I was curious.
See, I've seen like people put their dog up, a little dog,
I've seen
hold it
that.
up to the.
No, the ground level foot pedal operated
Oh,
fountains, those are
yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Those
they're
are
nice, but
Well,
I've
so-
seen them up there holding the dog up towards the, it's like, oh, God.
You pick my dog up, he just starts running. But,
But anyway, back to my issue, have a, you know, a 2-hour session on a caucus meeting, a Saturday morning or something like that, and come up with some strategic goals. Just, not a lot of them, maybe 5 of them for the year that we're gonna focus our attention and our money on. That's just an idea I threw out on the email. I've seen people nodding, so.
I think that it's a great idea to use the breakdown that we're gonna get, maybe committee by committee, based on April's groupings, to say these help us set some priorities committee by committee. The timing seems like it'll be pushed to maybe get things in for this budget, if we're gonna have to committee by committee. But this stuff is probably mostly timeless, you know, so if we get to it next year, that's still okay.
I have no idea about a lot of the comments about the roads. I mean, they may already be in Dewey's plan.
Exactly,
I mean,
that
there
might
may be
already.
things that-
Well, we have a few things that's in the plan, yes. And like up on Riverwatch up there, that would have been done up there, but we got stopped on that because we had a couple of major things up here to be done up here. So it's all about price and money, you know. We have to get prices on things and then see if we have that money, because we only get so much money a year from the state. So we can only do so many things at a time.
Well, I know one of the things that came out of Emerald Springs is assume responsibility for the Emerald Springs roads. And we've heard in the past that they're not up to subdivision standard. So I have to ask this question. Have we previously made repairs, done maintenance on streets that were not up, when they were built, weren't up to subdivision standards? Did we set a precedent?
Have we
in-
assumed streets
Do-
under city
have
control
we-
that are not up to
we
standards?
We took out the street,
No, the only streets we did that with were streets that were in the city,
And,
like
and,
Rosewood for one.
and has the city ever agreed to take on subpar streets in the past?
No.
no,
the ruling has always been, if you bring the streets up to standard, we would take them over. I believe Clock Tower Way, they had wanted that, and we said, you know, we can't do that because we don't own it.
So Rosewood, that was built 50, 60 years ago, when Matt was like
Yeah,
living back there,
yeah,
was that subdivision standard back then?
no.
No. And we've done.
I don't think in them days, builders built so.
You didn't have anybody governing.
Didn't have this stuff.
Okay,
Yeah, but we have it now.
yeah.
So
Matter you
they have to build, yeah, they gotta build it to the standard.
Well, I know there's been a lot of changes because,
So in other words, in the 70s and 80s and 90s, a lot of the streets were done by the builders. The county or the cities did not enforce any type of standard.
Right.
I think area
Well, there were
planning let
subdivision
anything
standards,
go.
but
There wasn't
wasn't
anybody.
somebody out on the job to make sure they were
Right.
compliant.
Yeah, we've seen enough of that both in Villa Hills and Crescent Springs. So what do you do for some of those people that have been caught into that trap?
I'd be curious about our city engineer's opinion on, why are these streets not acceptable? Can they be made to be acceptable? And then just kind of leave it at that professional opinion, or we use that professional opinion to help it.
I mean, we've heard that there's gonna be a lot of work needed to the streets in Emerald Springs.
But I
Because-
think Emerald Springs, and I would like to maybe divert it in April. I don't think they're looking for you to pick up every street. And
Yeah,
I'm
you
gonna
pick
sit
up
down
one.
with them in a private
Okay.
session, because one of the arguments started right away. Okay, Crescent Springs takes over your streets. Who's gonna plow the streets? They want to plow the streets themselves. I said, no, if they become city streets, we plow. So they backed off again. Again, it's one of those issues there, and it's being pushed by one or two, and all those requests came from a board meeting. I know where they were originated.
Okay.
Do we-
Why would the city even wanna do that?
What?
And incur that extra expense? Why would we agree to do that?
Okay, one, and this is their argument, and I live there, is we do pay taxes. The three things we get is, or should, we get police, fire, and streets. We don't do trash, we don't do anything else with the city. You don't plow or anything. Okay, so is there a compensation mechanism here if we don't use the fun of the street, even though we're paying into it? Should we get anything? No, let me finish, Vince.
Go ahead.
Villa Hills, because of their car tax, picked up all of Steamboat 2 years ago. No conditions. They offered the same thing to Prospect. Prospect only said, do the major drive, because they wanted some control on the other streets. They didn't like when they would get to the streets. So there has been, some of the developments that are originally private have been picked up. And they do hear it about it because the same management company is working Prospect, Steamboat, Fort Mitchell. So they pass on that information. Our management company is the same one that does Country Squires, HOA.
Town. So, with just real quick, and we can talk about this, but we're starting to get into the minutia of this and hash it out where we're talking about maybe doing that in committees. And you can respond, y'all can talk it out, but if we could use this in the committees, that'd be great, because otherwise we'll be here all night.
Yeah, and that's where I'm taking it. I go to their board meetings and let me see what the reality is there. And then in a real committee meeting, we can sit and talk.
And has the homeowners association had an engineer come in and take a look at the streets and say, this is what's gonna be happening in 5 years and this is how much it's gonna cost? And if
That's one of
they-
my questions in executive session.
So what is the right committee that talks about roads? Is there a committee that considers roads and public improvements?
Just public works.
Public Works.
No, council committee,
No.
city committee.
There's
That's
not.
you, right?
So, where,
It's usually been between the city administrator, mayor, and Public Works.
Yeah. And I think we're, as you said, one, this is more for committee. Two, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here.
yeah.
They just did it to get this on the table,
Okay.
period. Thanks, Lou. You got, Mayor, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
But if you could ask that question, if you have had an assessment done on,
Oh, I will. And I'll ask for history, was any promised by the builder or previous city or county? Because that is, what, 25 years old from the original build?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just to finish it up, do you think maybe by caucus, it would be a reasonable time to get a spreadsheet? Maybe we cut it off in a week or a week and a half?
That's fine.
Thanks. Then we can get going and maybe get something in budget, but if we don't, it's, I think, okay.
Okay.
All right. Ma'am, did you want to address council?
No, I do not. I might be moving to this area.
Oh,
I
okay.
kind of like to look at, check out.
Sure. Okay.
the
do we
city.
pass
Well, welcome.
muster?
Yes.
Welcome.
Do we pass muster?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's a nice place to
Yeah,
live.
yeah, it looks like it's very nice.
And we haven't raised
Yeah.
taxes, let's see, how many, out of the last 10 years, twice, once?
Oh, okay, well, that's good.
Okay, so
We're
that's a
the
selling point.
third
Never
lowest
do though.
taxing city in Kenton County.
Okay.
Is that why we're out of money?
Awesome.
We're not out of money.
It's a very pretty area. Yeah.
Thank
We
you.
just sold 2 houses on our street, so darn, we
Hey.
connect you with the people. We're
Okay.
selling them.
Old business?
I have two matters. One is, I know there was some discussion about the US Bank site and traffic flow. And per our last meeting discussion about waiting at his final decision, I have spoken with the developer, Mr. Lenny, last week, and I had advised Lou of this. There is still interest to build and develop that site. However, separate and apart from the text amendment that we have to consider as council, there are still a few issues that they are, I guess I'd use the word sort through, resolve, and most of those do surround, I'm told, with the hard median that's coming in on Buttermilk Pike. I asked him, is there anything other than the text amendment that the city could facilitate your decision, encourage your decision, or for us to consider in terms of whether the city adopts this text amendment? And his answer was no. There are all other sources. I think he meant the state with that. I don't know that for certain. So where I left it with him is that when they have resolved their issues and they're still interested, please advise us so the city can now undertake this text amendment. I did talk to him about traffic issues that have been raised here generally, and I asked him specifically if he had some type of drawing that dealt with parking spaces, traffic flow, drive-through and the like, and he said that he did. And so my hope is that if in fact they make a decision they wish to move forward, that he can come to, say, the caucus meeting, lay those out so everybody can ask their questions, that you've been with good questions about traffic dings, if I remember, Vince, you raised last time, and collisions, I should say, and hopefully that would resolve most of the concerns.
Now, are they renovating or tearing down?
I don't know that answer. I didn't ask him, frankly, and he didn't volunteer. He just said he had plans, building plans that he could show, and I think that would resolve that question.
Right, right.
He did say that, because I asked him how long would the queue be? And he said it's designed to hold 9 cars in the queue before it would hit Buttermilk Pike. And
Huh.
I said, well, if there's 9 cars in line and you're 10th, my chances are you're not going to wait. You're going to move on. But you never know. I'm hoping that he will, I hope that obviously they want to move forward and that they come and bring their drawings and address council with their concerns and your concerns. The other issue is, I wanted to raise, I talked last meeting about the FCC ruling on cell towers. Planning Commission had at their meeting last week adopted certain alterations to their policy in response to the FCC ruling. And some of these I talked about at the meeting, particularly the crunch of time under the FCC ruling. There is a very limited time frame to consider applications and either approve or disapprove. It is, I think our best bet would be they've invested a lot of time into this. If we get an application, we may just want to kick it to PDS to at least give their initial review and see what they had to say. There is some say over location and aesthetics, which I think we could retain control over. But again, whenever this arises, and I assume it will arise sooner rather than later, we're going to need to move pretty fast however we respond. And PDS has now set up some internal procedures, including a fee structure by them for how they're going to deal with it. And I will say that I think they're very much up to date on what the FCC is requiring, and we should avail ourselves of their expertise when it arises. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, new business. Municipal Order 2019-4, approving a marketing agreement with Utility Service Partners Private Label Incorporated.
It's my understanding everybody has seen, or at least it was attached to the marketing agreement. I'm just going to read the order and not the whole agreement, unless people have questions about that. Municipal Order 2019-4, municipal order of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, approving a marketing agreement with Utility Services Partners Private Label Inc., DBA, Service Line Warranties of America, in the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky. Whereas sewer and water line laterals between the main lines and connections on residential private property are owned by individual residential property owners residing in the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky. And whereas the city desires to offer residential property owners the opportunity, but not the obligation, to purchase a service line warranty and other similar products set forth in Exhibit A, or as otherwise agreed to in writing from time to time. Whereas Utility Service Partners Private Label Inc., DBA, Service Line Warranties of America, hereinafter referred to as the company, has agreed to make products available to residential property owners within the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, subject to terms and conditions contained in service agreements. And whereas the city believes it is in the best interest of the residents of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, to be able to participate in this program if a resident chooses to do so. Now therefore be it ordained by the mayor and the city council of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, that the mayor is authorized to enter into a marketing agreement with Utility Service Partners Private Label Inc., DBA, Service Line Warranties of America, that allows this company to use the city's logo and name to offer services for sewer and water line services to the residents of the City of Crescent Springs in documents similar to those attached hereto as Exhibit A, which is the marketing agreement and the terms that are set forth in the Exhibit A of that agreement, including a term of 3 years, license fees.
Okay, any comments?
How long do they have the agreement? I mean, can that be withdrawn by the city at any time?
The term is for 3 years.
3 years. Okay, I thought that's what it was. Okay.
Has the city ever had any sort of warranty program or anything in the past?
No.
Before?
No, actually, we're not offering the warranty program.
Right, but the company is.
We're just authorizing the company to contact the residents and they decide whether they want to sign up for it or not.
I guess my only question is, in the long, if somebody opens it and they see our logo and they decide to go with it, and then they have a problem with this company, do we want our logo on there? Is there a reason why we're allowing that with the,
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's just there are cities around here, Edgewood and I think Fort Mitchell and several others that that have the service. And I assume they're using their logo.
What is the city's compensation for this agreement?
Nothing.
I don't know, we get some.
No, it says there's a fee.
Yeah, there's a fee.
I think it's 50 cents per product for each month that the,
So for 3 years, if you signed up for it.
So for every warranty underwritten, we get 50 cents annually?
per, because there's a sewer line, I think you're.
50 cents per line
Per line.
on each warranty?
Yeah, it's not that much, but
So considering it not being that much, is it worth our risk?
What, you know, what's our liability if
Well,
we have
there's
our
a-
logo on there?
There's an indemnification clause in the agreement where they agree to hold the city harmless. We'll start with that.
Can the, I have it.
Yeah.
Represent Suez.
Does the, yeah, but, you know, I guess my question to you, you know, if somebody decides to sue the city because our logo's on there, even though there's the indemnity agreement, you know, can that happen?
Can they sue?
Yeah.
Anybody can sue.
Well, I understand.
I don't mean to be, I don't mean to be glib about that. I mean, personally.
I understand.
But
I like
if
it.
somebody wants to sue, they're gonna sue. The issue is that we built in enough protection to try to shield the city from liability. And, you know, there are some protections under law, but I think the contractual protection is the indemnification clause. And, you know, if everything blows up and they've closed business or filed bankruptcy, I don't think the city, to the best of my reading, the city does not obligate itself to perform any of this service work. It's limited to the offerer, which is this company.
Do you pay the fees yearly?
I think you can arrange that with the company any way you want to pay it.
Okay.
We did it for property in Villa Hills, but I'm with you, Vince, it's a visual endorsement.
Right.
And I think
It
you're
is
saying
visual.
it's,
You're correct.
we may be protected, but when I got it for the property in Villa Hills logo, I think, was on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I, even in my head, knew, they weren't saying they'd stand behind it, but it was still kind of a gut thing, like, right?
Which,
I think the reason for that is that
It's a marketing.
it's a marketing position, but, you know, it gives the person that might want to take the service that the city has checked it out and they're not a fly-by-night outfit.
right.
They're all over the country. And I think that's what that's basically for.
Well,
And what cities in Kenton County have gone with this company so far?
I'm not really
He
sure.
listed off.
yeah, he did, he ran off of.
Yeah, he
a litany of them.
read about 6 or so.
Okay.
Kenton
Named
County.
your cities, okay.
Well, I just want to make sure our tail's not in the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's on the up and up. You're confident in this organization?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, basically because, you know, talking with other cities that, you know, they think it's really a good thing. And I think it's a good thing to offer our residents, because it's quite expensive if they have a break, unsuspecting, and it's costing them $6,000 to $16,000.
It is an expensive repair. I can
It
say
is,
that
yeah.
from people I know that do it, unfortunately. You probably know that better than anybody.
I know what they do. I'll give you a break. It's a joke. It's a
Yes,
joke.
just kidding.
It's a joke. I'm just kidding.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
Oh, sorry, this is not
I'll
a
make a
two-reading thing.
motion to approve municipal order 2019-4.
Christie's made a motion,
I'll second it.
Chad second.
Carter Dickerson,
Yes.
Christie Arlinghouse.
Yes.
Vince Albanese.
Yes.
Bob Mueller,
Yes.
Patrick Hackett,
Yes.
Chad Longbonds.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Next item is first reading of ordinance 2019-1, adopting the 2019 S-28 supplement from American Legal Publishing.
Ordinance 2019-1 An ordinance of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky adopting the 2019 S-28 supplement from American Legal Publishing Corporation of Cincinnati, Ohio, of the Code of Ordinances to the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky. Whereas the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky is contracted to have its Code of Ordinances supplemented by all ordinances of a general nature enacted since the last prior supplement to the Code of Ordinances up through Ordinance 2018-11, which was enacted on August 27, 2018. And whereas the American Legal Publishing Corporation has completed the revision of the ordinances known as 2019 S-28 supplement, now therefore be it ordained by the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, Section 1, that the 2019 S-28 supplement to the Code of Ordinances of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, be and the same is hereby adopted by reference as if set forth in its entirety. Section 2, that this ordinance shall take effect and be in full force from and after its date of passage, approval, and publication according to law. Section 3, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith to the extent of such conflict are hereby repealed.
Questions or comments?
What's this cost us a year? Just curious.
It depends on how many, it goes by volume.
Okay.
And it's required to be done within every 5 years, so it's easier just to do it every year.
And do they publish it like by calendar year or by our fiscal year?
I do it by calendar year, or
Okay.
by calendar year, yes.
Okay.
Go to the next ordinance?
Yep.
It's first reading.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Ordinance number 2019-3, an ordinance of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky vacating 1,305.7191 square feet parcel to reserve at Meadowwood LLC on Sierra Drive in Crescent Springs, Kentucky. Whereas the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky has determined that it has excess right-of-way which contains 1,305.7191 square feet parcel as more particularly described on the attached Exhibit A and as more particularly described on the attached plat attached hereto as Exhibit B. And the city, being desirous of vacating its interest in the previously described real estate as described in the attached Exhibit A in favor of reserve of at Meadowwood LLC, said right-of-way being adjacent to Sierra Drive. And whereas the City Council and the Mayor have determined that vacating said right-of-way is in the best interest of the residents of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, and now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky as follows. Section 1, the city hereby vacates all right, title, and interest to a 1,305.7191 square feet parcel is more particularly described on the attached Exhibit A and is seen on the plat attached hereto as Exhibit B to reserve at Meadowwood LLC on Sierra Drive. Section 2, this ordinance with the legal description and the plat attached shall be reported with the Canton County Clerk at Covington. You all should have received a copy of the legal description and the plat prepared by Greg Sketch. I don't know why he needs 4 digits on the square feet.
Yeah, it's a little imprecise.
Yeah, it is.
Is this the spur that was gonna go to a road that ran down through that development?
Yeah.
Like it's on the back of the
It's on-
property
it's-
line?
Actually, it's on the front side. They built a house on the lot on the corner there.
Okay.
And the one piece is right in front of that house. The other piece is across the street. And they're not really asking for that one, but we figured while we're doing this, might as well clean up both of them. But they already built a house in front of that one.
That's the 2526 on
Yeah.
lot 18.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments? Need a motion?
No, it's first reading.
Oh, I'm sorry.
First reading.
First reading. Okay. For the next two items, I want to say something that has brought us to this point. The mayor form of government allows the mayor to hire or fire anybody in the administration section of the city, which I did. And of course, then I found out that I needed the consent of council to do it, so that's why the municipal order. But the reason I asked to reverse it was because if I didn't get consent of council to hire Mike, then there's no sense for the ordinance to begin with. So that's basically where we're at this point. I would have hoped that we would have had questions about this at the caucus meeting or thereafter instead of at a regular meeting, but it is what it is. So, Carter, I know you had some questions.
I did. So I guess kind of the first question was, are we sure we want a part-time city administrator? And so the more I think about it, when you called to tell me you'd make the decision to hire somebody part-time, I thanked you for telling me, and that was about all we talked about it. And the more I think about it, the more I wonder if that's really what's best for the city. Because we had no city administrator for so long, and then we had a public services director, and then that just morphed into from full-time job to full-time job to a full-time city administrator.
Right.
And we made a lot of progress during that time.
Right.
And we all realized, based on what Matt's telling us, that we're a little stagnant now. Growth is not really here. And that we're kind of almost out of money too anyway. So even though we're not paying
Almost
into...
out of money?
Well, we're net zero essentially almost. I mean, we're lagging behind a little bit. We're saving $330,000 a year on our police services, but we're still
440.
Oh, even better. But we're still not up in the black where it would be nice to be. So it seems tempting because of that to go with a part-time person, try and save money. But I've always believed that you have to spend money to make money, and you have to have somebody at the wheel full-time to really, be on top of your potential. And so part-time to me, just as we go on, seems less beneficial.
Okay, can
I
I answer that? The reason we got to this point back in December when Rip told me that he was thinking about retiring, we talked about it. And the city's probably, with what's going on right now, 95% built out. So that was a question that I asked of him, and he was the full-time administrator, and he said that he didn't think we needed a full-time administrator going forward. So that's how I come up with it wasn't just me personally saying, okay, I want a part-time administrator, but
So then we don't need there's talk this fall about consultants
can we
to
hear
come
Lou's
in
full thoughts?
sometime down the line. Just the idea of a consultant, not a person, just the idea of a consultant. How does the consultant come into play with a part-time city administrator? Or were you just taking the consultant off the table?
No, what my plan is, of course, till he gets back, I can't Rip Berger.
I know, but you can't say it.
Well, I can say I want to hire him. I haven't talked to him, but I can say I want to hire him, right? Legally?
You can't offer him anything.
No, I haven't offered him anything yet. That's why I said when he comes
hire
back.
him.
When he comes back.
Well, I think it's reasonable to say in general terms,
But, okay, then.
it makes sense to bring back a consultant, the last person to do the job.
What's the differentiation between work of the city administrator and what the consultant will be doing? Will the consultant be training the city administrator on things, or will we?
Probably on zoning, but other than that, I think Mike can handle it. His experience, he Manny's 22 police officers
Right.
and a police clerk, and a budget of $3.5 million. So, you know, I think he's capable of it, and he's got a master's degree and a bachelor's
But
degree.
he doesn't know zoning and
Right.
code enforcement and things
Right.
like that.
And that's-
So is the idea that the so-called consultant trains Mike on those areas of expertise, and then
Sure.
eventually the consultant ceases to be?
Well, again, I don't want to say too much, but what I'm planning for him is naturally zoning and special projects.
Okay.
So what you're saying is you want to break the full-time city administrator job up into 2 part-time jobs?
That's basically what it comes down to, yeah.
You know,
And his payroll, his pay and benefits was $104,000 a year,
George's?
yes.
So is your
Yes.
aim to match that with
No,
2
I'm
part-time?
gonna be 40,000 below that.
Okay,
How
so
So
much?
we're gonna save the city $40,000.
40,000? Okay.
you know the other thing now, you know, I think that, I agree with Lou on the part of, you know, the city has grown enough that, you know, we're almost, you know, built out.
Yeah.
Well, you know, having a part-time guy, I think that's a great idea, and if the job becomes too big, then you have, you know.
Haven't lost anything.
Right, and you're gonna call a consultant only when you need him, you know, so it doesn't cost us anything to have Ripper, or,
Yeah.
you know, to have a consultant, you know, I mean, you know, it'll cost you when you need him, and it doesn't cost you when you don't need him.
So do
So-
we see the consultant being on an as-needed basis, or is the consultant going to be signing a contract with the city for X amount of hours during such and such a period of time? That's
Right.
my
Right.
understanding of the way
Right.
a contract works with a consultant. That's what I do when I do tax work. I'm gonna work from this time to this time at this rate.
He'll work so many hours.
Right.
Per
Now, the issue that Mike wants to work part-time, he's not interested in full-time
Right.
employment.
Well, he's retired, so he can't work more than 1,200 hours.
Okay. So, is the idea that he'd come in the office 5 days a week and work 5 hours a day?
Right.
But then we have meetings at night, and we're gonna have to really keep tabs of those hours, because you can only work 100 hours in a month.
Right.
So there could be,
Well, the
you
only
get to
meeting-
Thursday and say, oh, I'm not gonna come in on Friday because I got my 25 hours in, right?
Right.
that seems like it could be.
Yeah, he can, I mean, I think that's easy enough managed to, you know, to keep that in line. He definitely doesn't want to work 1,200 hours because that would affect
Right, I
his
understand.
pension and everything else.
But what if
so-
the job needs the 1,200 plus hours?
Well, if we get to that point, then I guess you'd have to look at a full-time administrator. So my point is, we're not really gonna lose anything by going part-time. If it comes to that, but I have every reason to believe that Mike will be able to handle it all in
Okay.
25 hours a
I
week.
have another issue. We talked about economic development and the small area area.
Right.
And we talked about, at one point, we had Jim Parsons' work going on, and having someone to go out and sell the city to potential developers, like to the
That's-
Hampton Inn and so forth.
Right.
Who would do that
That's
between the
called-
two people?
That's called special projects.
And who would run the special projects?
Rip Burger.
So that would be
They
his
could
5 hours per
they could
week
both do it.
bucket?
They could both do it, but that's part of what I'm gonna ask him to be doing. We're also talking about projects like Eubanks and things like that
So
we're gonna have to deal with.
you see him working, we're gonna say $40,000.
He's, Who you talking about?
I'm talking about whoever, Mr. Who.
Mr. One and Mr. Two.
Mr. City,
Or Mrs.
Mr. Consultant,
I guess
or
it's
Ms.
Mrs.
Consultant.
He
Okay.
will work
How-
2 days a week.
2 days a week. Okay, that's me.
So if we got the left hand going to 2-day-a-week meetings and the right hand going to 5-day-a-week meetings, are they
Right.
gonna
Yep.
mesh
I
enough?
think they'll be able to mesh, yeah.
You don't think there'll be
No,
any
I think not.
communication, like I talked
Mm-hmm.
to the consultant on Monday and he told me this and now the city administrator's telling me this.
Well, that, they have to jive together on.
Yeah,
And you're
He-
confident?
Yes, yes, I am. I really am. You know, I've always tried to do what's gonna save the city money. And I've done that in the past, and I think this will be the same.
I agree with you.
I agree it will save money, but I'll stay by my original statement that I believe you gotta spend money to make
Well-
money. And even though we're 95% developed out, that leaves a whole lot of redevelopment to go on, there's a lot of work to be done in this
well, we
city.
talked a lot about, selling the city as far as that small area study
Sure.
area over there. That there's a lot that can be done back
Right.
there to help increase our tax base.
There's a lot everywhere.
And, services to our residents.
Right.
Yeah, but if you start selling your area, and I've done this in selling medical device companies, you end up going to the business development group of that particular company and doing a presentation, a PowerPoint, whatever. But you create all this stuff, and it's who has the polish or can speak that language to them to get them interested.
There's a
And
point
it
to
might
that.
not be the city administrator doing it, it might be one of us doing it or hiring somebody.
Right. Or it could be the
Consultants.
city administrator or the special
Consultants.
coordinator.
So is the consultant gonna be called a special coordinator?
Well, it's gonna, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is the
But
first
it's
reading.
not an employee of the
Not the-
Yeah,
city,
this is
so,
This is it?
Municipal order is one reading.
the person is, we're not paying anything as far as taxes. It's completely freelance.
For the city administrator?
No, for the consultant.
Right.
Okay.
Neither one of them will get retirement
I
or,
understand that,
health
but I
insurance.
just wanted to make sure the consultant was just getting
he's
paid
getting paid by the hour.
by the hour,
Right,
and they take care of all their own taxes
Right.
and other
Right.
things like that, as all consultants do.
right.
But are we going to name the times and the days that they come in and where they work and what they do and things like that?
I will.
Then let me put on my IRS hat.
Yeah.
If you do that, then by law, according to the IRS, the person is an employee of the city.
Well, all I'll be telling him is 2 days a week.
Okay.
What he does,
Because people, I'm not saying whoever this is, and it could be that we have a person, and then that person says, I don't want to work anymore, and we get a new consultant in. And that consultant somewhere down the line, and this has happened in companies, because the boss said who, what, when, where, and how. They come back 3 years later and go, I was an employee, especially when it gets time for them to get social security or pension.
right,
Just a thought.
no, but he will, I won't be telling him what he needs to do, but he needs to coordinate with the city administrator, everything he's doing, so that he knows.
It might be better off that it's not a he, that it's like an LLC that provides a consultant. There's some
Well,
there's some tax ramifications in there, that's all. Enough said.
We'll go ahead to talk about that when he gets back and how
He
we
might
set it
want
up.
to.
Yeah.
So moving forward, this special coordinator we're considering, I mean, he's retired a few times. What if he decides to retire in the summer and we can't find another retired person who wants to be a special coordinator who's qualified.
If he retires in the summer, we kill him.
Yeah. That's right.
No, Ted April, we got.
I'm just trying to play it out. I'm just trying to play it out.
Remember that, it's all.
This is a tough place to work
Yeah,
for.
he only retires in the winter time.
It's just what you do.
There you go.
So what if he does retire in the wintertime? And then we're left
But what if Mike retires?
in need, and, well,
Well, you know, that
Now then-
guys,
Then we
why don't
look
we
for-
try this out, and that's all down the road.
Right.
yeah.
You know, I mean, we've always worked it out before, we'll work it out again.
You know, what gets me is up until December, I thought we had a full-time city administrator named.
No. Why would you think that?
Well, we
I
did, it
was
was
told
George.
it by people.
Right?
Well, I don't know who the people were. It wasn't
Well,
by me.
Well, it's someone
You mean a
that's,
replacement city administrator?
yeah,
Because in December we had her, okay.
I think a few of us might have been told that at this table.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's not full-time anymore, it's part-time. I'm just saying, it just,
What
if
do we-
George decided it was part-time, then I guess it's part-time.
So what do we do with this ordinance?
If somebody makes a motion.
I need a motion.
Well, I have to
I'll
read-
make the motion.
I have to-
After he
Yeah, read
reads
it.
after he reads it.
Municipal Order 2019-3. Municipal Order of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, appointing Michael Daly as City Administrator of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky. Whereas a vacancy has occurred in the position of City Administrator of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, and pursuant to KRS 83A-080, the position of City Administrator is deemed a non-elective office within the Commonwealth, and whereas it is incumbent upon the city to fill the vacancy, now therefore the mayor has designated Michael Daly as City Administrator, and the legislative body of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky hereby approves the appointment of Michael Daly as City Administrator of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, upon such terms as otherwise provided in the ordinances of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky. Michael Daly shall have all the powers, authority, and obligations inhering in the office. I might say in here.
Inherent?
Inherent, thank you. That's what that's supposed to be. This is sometimes spell checker at its worst. In the office of city administrator and is otherwise established by ordinances of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, and the laws of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Question. Don't we need to have the ordinance passed before we do the municipal order?
He can't begin his employment until the ordinance is passed and becomes effective. So we can have, it can't become effective until the next ordinance is read
Okay,
twice
so we
and
can
approved.
safely do the municipal order now and then the ordinance is read.
Why don't we table the municipal order until we get the
Well-
ordinance passed?
Well,
What's the,
I like to get him started.
Well, you can't
But
start.
you
Can't
can't
start
start.
Well, I know,
until the
I
second
know.
reading.
Yeah.
see, I,
But if we do the ordinance, the first reading of the ordinance tonight,
Mhm.
then we can have a special meeting Tuesday or Wednesday.
Well, for instance, I'm not opposed to Mike Daly as a person
No.
or as the CA, so I would be a vote yes tonight. But I still remain opposed to the part-time position, so I'd be a no the next time around. It's just
The one
how it
thing,
worked for me.
as I said earlier, I did call the Kentucky League of Cities, and they said we could do it this way. I talked to the legal
This is
department.
just a
But you're-
placeholder as far
but
as I'm.
Mike,
Like
you
this,
just
we've
said
got-
that Mike cannot come on board until the ordinance is passed.
Correct,
And your-
because
your intention-
we're changing the status
Right.
of the position
So
from
it-
full-time to part-time.
So, to keep things kosher as we normally do with an ordinance, we have the first reading, and the second reading, we vote on it.
Correct.
And then normally we would do the municipal order. What is the harm tonight in tabling the municipal order, naming Mike as city administrator, having your special meeting, have it for two things: the second reading of the ordinance, and then the voting on the municipal order, just so we keep things in line with the way the city normally does things, and nobody can come back, even though the League of Cities said it's okay, because there's extenuating circumstances, da-da-da, but we keep our processes in place as we normally have, so nobody could come back along the line and challenge us. I don't know. That's just my thought. It's like we're putting the cart before the horse. We can't have him come to work until the ordinance is passed, and what's the hurry tonight in doing the municipal order? We have to put together a special hearing or meeting in 48 hours, right? That would be Wednesday, Thursday?
Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday or
Yeah.
Thursday, so let's
It-
table the municipal order for tonight. Do both the municipal order and the ordinance on whenever we have the special meeting.
Wednesday or
and
Thursday, yeah.
It'll take care of itself.
I'd be in favor.
Either guy,
What? I missed that.
He said either one.
either one.
I make a motion to
Anybody-
table municipal order 2019-3 until the next special meeting.
I'd second that.
And have that on the agenda of the special meeting.
Can everybody here make a special meeting this week? Like
What day are you
Wednesday or-
wanting?
Wednesday or Thursday?
Let me look
It's gotta be
at
48
calendar.
hours, doesn't it? So-
24.
24, but it would have to be at
24
least
hours.
Wednesday.
Okay,
Off the top of my head, I think
Wednesday.
24.
24.
If it's after 6 o'clock, yes, I can make it.
Well, let's make it at 5.
I can't do that with kids.
Can he sit someplace else?
No,
This is your penance.
We were talking about
Like,
playing
and
musical chairs
I
here.
sat next to Mike Doherty for 4 years.
What day are you thinking?
I'll leave that.
We got along really good. We got along really good.
Which day are you thinking, Lou?
Wednesday.
Wednesday or
Wednesday.
Thursday, if everybody,
Wednesday, yes, on Thursday I cannot.
Well, how about
Wednesday,
Friday?
yes.
how about Wednesday?
Well, he can't
I
make it.
can't make
Make
it
it.
Wednesday or
Yeah.
Friday. I'm out.
You can't make it Friday either? Do you?
No, Friday I'm good.
Friday,
But Wednesday and Thursday I'm.
Friday I'm good.
22nd.
22nd, I'm good.
Okay.
You good? You good?
Yes.
No, this Friday would be.
Could we do it in the
15th.
morning?
this Friday is not.
You said this Friday.
Are you
This
saying
Friday's not enough time,
No, this
right?
Friday.
You said 24 hours.
Yeah, 24 hours.
Oh, I missed that part. This
24
Friday?
So could we do it Wednesday
This Friday.
morning?
It's the 15th.
This Friday evening I'm good. That's fine.
Do we need to do it in
I
the
mean, it's
I
not gonna
doubt
take-
whether everybody
it's
could
not
be
take
here
very
in the
long.
morning.
I mean,
Well, I could do it this Wednesday. I didn't hear the 24th. I'm available this Wednesday, Thursday. Sorry, not
but
this
you're not
Friday.
available Wednesday or Friday
I'm
all
sorry.
day long?
I've already got meetings Wednesday and Thursday evening that I'm committed to.
Oh.
Okay,
Thursday
but-
I'm out of town.
But if we had it in the morning, could people make it in the morning?
I could come in the morning.
Wednesday morning?
No, Bob's going.
You'll have 24 hours from what?
Tonight,
Okay.
right?
So 3 AM.
Oh, don't do that. No.
Come on, Patrick.
Springing forward
I'm
once
bringing
again.
Coffee.
So
Where are we
what day are we
giving
going? Wednesday morning, Wednesday night, Friday morning, Friday night? What are we
I'm
doing?
open.
Either evening.
Evening's the best for you? How about Friday evening? It's not gonna be very long.
Carter.
I can get a babysitter by Friday evening. If it's gonna be
Bring the
short.
kids.
Bring the kids.
Bring
You
the
know
kids.
what? All right, I'll bring all
Bring
four
the kids.
Bring all 4 kids.
Be careful what you wish
All right.
for.
Yeah, ain't that bad.
So,
I got one for you, one for you, one for you, and one for
Yeah.
you.
So what time Friday?
so is everybody good with Friday evening?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Friday.
and we'll
Okay.
have Carter's
Earliest
kids
possible.
are gonna
What-
get
What's
an
the earliest you guys
education
can make?
on.
Get ready.
What's the earliest you guys can make?
5:36.
Yeah.
5:30.
6 o'clock?
6
6
o'clock?
o'clock sounds good.
6 o'clock
said-
Friday? Mike, you all right?
This is
I'll make
not,
it work.
Okay.
Okay.
I can
All right.
delay things.
All right,
I'll
6
delay.
o'clock Friday, you all right?
My dinner date.
That's good.
You want that early?
April, you know what the notice is?
No, I'll just say, I'll go later.
We'll work on this time.
Well, special meeting, there's no notice, there's the
I call the
notice.
shots anyway, so what the hell.
What?
Roll call,
Yeah.
Vince
Wait,
Albanese.
What do we roll call?
you want to,
Tabling and.
I had
Okay,
Christie.
make the motion.
I had
Make the
Christie with the
motion.
first and Carter with the second.
Okay,
Vince Albanese.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Bob Mueller,
This is the table.
Thank you.
Patrick Hackett,
Yes.
Chad Longvons.
Yes.
Carter Dickerson.
Yes.
Christie Arlinghouse.
yes.
passes unanimously. Okay, next item. First reading of ordinance 2019-2, amending the city's personnel policy and procedures to modify the salary range and status for the position of city administrator.
Ordinance number 2019-2, an ordinance of the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, amending the city's personnel policy and procedures to modify the salary range and status for the position of city administrator. Be ordained by the City of Crescent Springs, Kentucky, Section 1, Ordinance 2015-1 is hereby amended by amending the status of the position of city administrator as set forth in said ordinance. The mayor shall have the discretion to hire a part-time city administrator at an hourly rate from $25 per hour to $45 per hour, and the hours are not to exceed those authorized by Kentucky Retirement Boards, which is currently 1,200 hours annually. In all other respects, the description of the office of city administrator is hereby reaffirmed and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, Ordinance 2017-4 is hereby amended to the extent that the mayor is granted the discretion to hire a part-time city administrator. The compensation for such part-time position is set at the range of $25 per hour to $45 per hour in lieu of the salary range described in Appendix B of the city personnel policies as set forth in Ordinance 2017-4. Nothing in this amendment shall allow the city administrator on an hourly basis to receive compensation in excess of those amounts set forth in Ordinance 2017-4. Section 3. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are, to the extent of such conflict, hereby repealed. This ordinance shall be effective from its passage and publication according to law.
Okay. Finance meeting is 3:20. The next caucus meeting is 3:25. And events recreation is 3:06. 3:06?
No,
4:06.
4, 5, I think.
Okay.
You're still
events.
having Economic Development Committee next week?
Yeah, Economic Development Committee meeting is going to be the 18th at 6.
6.
It's April 3rd, the events committee meeting.
April 3rd.
At 4:30.
And we did start talking about your mayor's breakfast and community lunch. So
Okay.
it's in the
You want
works.
to report on that?
It's
or-
in the works.
Okay.
Well, just, it's in the works.
All right.
There's a lot of details to work out.
All right. Okay. All right. Anything else?
No, I make a motion to end the meeting.
I second.
Second, third.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.